Howdy, guys, and welcome to Big Brother Season 23's Night 14. Can you believe it? Night 14. We've finished up the second week. Welcome to Night 14, and welcome to Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. Hope y'all are doing fantastic this morning. Now, I got to say, I was a little bit worried about last night and what kind of conversations we would have. I really see the house guest in a bit of a standby mode right now. Everyone just relaxing, chilling out, not doing a whole lot. We're not seeing a lot of campaigning taking place from either Frenchie or Brittany. I think everyone kind of sees the writing on the wall right now of what they think is going to happen on eviction night, which is Frenchie going home. And they're just waiting until the HOH is declared before they re-engage into the game itself. And for the most part, we saw that last night. Doesn't mean there weren't some conversations and some relationship issues and things like that that are still worth talking about. So with that being said, let's get right into it. First conversation taking place. This is in the bathroom. Alyssa and Sarah Beth are talking. Alyssa is telling Sarah Beth that she really doesn't think that Brent's going to target either one of them because he's tight with Alyssa and that he wants to stay tight with not just Alyssa, but with her team itself, Team Kings. But the other thing as well is Alyssa saying, look, he's worried about the girls' alliance. And I wasn't part of the girls' alliance. He knows that. And therefore, I think he feels a little tighter with me, a little more trusting of me. For those reasons, I just don't think we're in danger from a Brent HOH. You or I, either one, Sarah Beth. So that's what they're explaining. Alyssa is thinking that Brent actually, if he got HOH, would most likely go after Brittany as his key target and maybe put Azah up as a pawn. Can't disagree with that. I could see that potentially happening. But soon after that conversation, still in the bathroom, we then have Brent himself come in, and he mentions that he's not really getting along with Whitney so well right now. They had a little blow up a while back, and just not really syncing right now. But with that being said, they're on the same team, so a Brent HOH can't target Whitney. He can't put Whitney up unless there's some weird twist we don't know about. But he does mention that he and Whitney really are at odds with each other right now. Alyssa, just a little bit later, mentions that Brent's team aces and her team kings really should be working together, that they're both four strong, that they could basically control the votes, control the house if the two of them work together. And Brent seems willing to consider that as well. He does seem like he's tight with Alyssa. And so we'll see how that relationship continues to develop. Talk from these three at that point in time about what kind of competition this next HOH might be. It's very interesting that the backyard is still open. During my season, we normally lost the backyard on a Tuesday morning early. The fact that come late on a Tuesday night and they still have, and it may still be open for all I know this morning, and the backyard is still open, that tells me that this is going to be a fairly simple event. It's not going to require a whole lot of mechanics, of props, things like that, because again, we're 24 hours plus a little bit out from the HOH competition tomorrow. So it should be a fairly simple competition. I don't think it would be as random as the one we had last week of shooting the pool ball into the shark's mouth. I think there'll be a little more, well, not that there wasn't skill involved with that. Don't want to discount Colin's victory. But I think it'll be something a little more involved with that. There was mention about maybe some kind of balancing competition. And I think that's a valid possibility. Think back to last season, All Stars. They had one competition where everyone had a 2 or 3 foot plate that they had to balance with a ball on top, and whoever could hold it the longest won HOH. I could see something like that occurring, or something else that doesn't involve a whole lot of set construction. But again, backyard staying open a lot longer, and that's contributing to everyone feeling a lot more chill as we go into the last part of this week. Now, we do have some conversations. Brent continues the conversation with the two women and says, Whitney and I aren't getting along well either, but also Azah's kind of hot, and she's a little hot with me as well. He says that she's upset that her team was targeted. Remember, Brittany and Frenchie are on the block, so he says she's upset because her team was targeted, Team Jokers, but also because apparently she got a little upset with Brent. He made some kind of mention about floaters in the house, and Azah took it a little bit personally, and Brent goes into some long detail about the difference between floaters and coasters. Floaters being someone that goes to either side of the house as necessary to survive. Coasters are someone who just kind of isn't a huge threat. They're just kind of riding along and not doing a whole lot of anything. So he tried to explain the differences, and Azah still wasn't real appreciative of it. So Brent definitely has some friction developing with a lot of people in the house, but in particular with some of the women in the house. And we'll talk about that more in just a second. Brent, with that in mind, we'll talk about it right now. Brent also says that they really need to get rid of a girl next week. He's been harping on that all week long. But he's saying we need to get a girl out, but it needs to be someone from the other side. So yeah, he's telling Sarah Beth and Alyssa that he certainly wants them to know he's not talking about them. When he talks about the other side, who is he talking about? The 4 women that Brent potentially would target would be Brittany, Azah, Tiffany, and Claire. Those are his 4 most likely targets. So we have that. A little bit later, Sarah Beth is talking to the cameras and mentioning she had talked yesterday or the day before about potentially wanting to win HOH for her brother's birthday, which is tomorrow. So she thought that'd be kind of cool. But now she's telling the camera that she really doesn't think she can win HOH, or she doesn't want to win HOH right now because she realizes that she isn't anyone's target. And if she won HOH, it would force her to show her cards. I agree. I'm not one to ever advocate throwing an HOH, and it would help building resumes and things like that if she had one, if she won HOH. But she's correct. Why show who you want to target and who you're siding with if you can just slide another week or two? And so we aren't going to see maximum effort from Sarah Beth tomorrow night when it comes to HOH. She did say she was going to kind of talk to Kyland about it and see what he thought. But regardless of what he says, I think she'll be fine not winning HOH. She does mention that Kyland is her ride or die. He's the only person that she really trusts, that she's willing to share information with. I'm in on this that duo. I'm going to continue to cheer for them. I really hope they do well. I'm all on board team Sarah Beth and team Kyland at this point in time. Not that there aren't other people I'm cheering for as well, but I like this duo. All right, we do have some other ongoing, some serious, some not so serious. We've got ants in the backyard. Every season, Big Brother has ants, and Tiffany doesn't like them. There are a lot of people who don't like them, but Tiffany doesn't like them. She's been spraying for them. They're in the backyard, and she's trying to attack them. Tiffany is saying that Frenchie's responsible for the ants since he's always carrying around a 2-liter bottle of soda wherever you go. She says, just look at the yacht room and his 2 liters in there. That's why we've got ants in the house. Man, Frenchie's getting blamed for everything right now, isn't he? Everything is Frenchie's fault. We get ants every year. Now I will say during my season 21, we got ants, but we didn't get ants until the last few weeks of the entire season. So I don't know if we were that much cleaner than anyone else, but we did something right. But yeah, the ants have already made their appearance in the Big Brother house. Annual tradition, just like Big Brother itself, the ants showing up as well. Let's see what's going on. Another night without a BB prom. Can't say that breaks my heart, but we keep hearing them talk about wanting to have a Big Brother prom night. Everyone dress up and have dates. It was supposed to be night before last, then it was supposed to be last night. Hadn't happened yet. And now with the backyard being closed, I don't expect to see anything else happen with it until next week, probably. We did see, because the backyard's still open, we saw lots of pool games going on, and I'm talking about pool tables as opposed to swimming. But a lot of pool games and just general chat going on in the backyard while they enjoyed yet another evening. We did pretty amazing. For once, it seems like we had a little bit earlier bedtime for most of the house guests last night. Big D, I can relate to Big D. He's in the yacht room and he's snoring away. I may have done a little snoring myself. He's snoring away, and Brittany and Frenchie are both throwing pillows at him, trying to get him to stop, and not much success. So at one point, Derek says that he kind of wakes up because they're trying to throw the pillows at him. Derek F says, "Hey, I need to sleep. Let me sleep." And someone mentions why. Basically, there's nothing going on tomorrow. You can stay up all night. You don't need to be sleeping. You sure don't need to be snoring. But Derek F, I can certainly relate to you on that one. Meanwhile, in the other room, not so much snoring going on. We've got Christian and Alyssa are laughing into each other's arms. They're snuggling. They're snuggling every night. They're snuggling a little bit closer. So is it a showmance yet? Well, I don't know. It depends on how you define showmance. They're definitely tight with one another. Certainly enjoying each other's company when the lights are off and such. So snoring in one house and snuggling and a little cooing going on in the other room. We've got that. Kyland at the same time is alone up in the HOH room, talking to the camera. He's trying to figure out who his team queens can work with. And that's a valid concern because, again, we heard Alyssa earlier talking about her team and Brent's team trying to work together, which leaves Kyland out. So Kyland's kind of trying to figure out how he can make the team approach work. Now, he's got a disadvantage because there's only 3 people on his team. But on the other hand, we probably only have another 2 weeks of team concept left, and then these things are going to dissolve. So as long as Kyland can just survive next week or two, I think the force of these teams will start to fade away after that point. So now back to some more strategy talking. We had one fairly deep conversation, and I'm kind of referencing up here behind me. Pretty interesting conversation going on originally between Hannah and Tiffany. This is in the chess lounge upstairs. Hannah and Tiffany are talking about Brent. A lot of talking about Brent last night from these two. Hannah saying that she can't go after Brent because they're on the same team. So if she wins HOH, then Brent is safe. Just like Brent's safe or Whitney's safe if Brent wins HOH. So she can't personally go after Brent. But she's saying that I think we need to take the shot when we can. And if you want to take that shot, Tiffany, I'm certainly not complaining, but you can't let anyone else know that I'm on board with the idea, that I'm on board with going after a teammate. But Hannah certainly is tired of Brent and ready to cut him loose. They end up saying that they trust each other. They're not going to blow up each other's games, that anything they say between the two of them will stay between the two of them. Yeah, you always have to be careful when those kind of promises are made. But I do expect Hannah and Tiffany probably work pretty well together and pretty tight together for quite a while going forward. And now Tiffany did talk about one point the Cookout Alliance, and she said, those are my guys, those are who I'm going to protect, but this is about survival of the strongest, and I'm not sure that everyone's going to make it. You kind of have to watch out for yourself, and at some point, some people are going to have to kind of disappear. So Tiffany is certainly thinking ahead. I love Tiffany's game. She's a very strategic player. Hannah is asking Tiffany, saying, look, I know you want Brent out, but the rest of your team, Kyland and Claire, are they the same way? Do they see Brent as the biggest threat? Well, Tiffany doesn't really answer. She kind of says, the whole house pretty much sees Brent as the threat. I think everyone thinks that way. Hannah says, I don't want Brent. I want Brent gone. She says, I also don't want Whitney on a jury. I don't want either one of those two on a jury. They're too headstrong, and I just don't want them deciding our fates. I want them out of the house before we get to the jury phase. They both kind of conversation turns a little bit from Brent onto Alyssa. They both are expressing concern with Alyssa and suggesting that she and Whitney, they mentioned both names, are really relying a little bit more on flirting, on selling themselves, rather than playing a strategic game, playing the game itself. Well, flirting is part of the relationship game, part of the social game, and it's part of Big Brother. It always has been, always will be. But they're kind of discounting what Alyssa and Whitney are doing. Tiffany is saying that she heard both of them say at different points while they've been in the house that they had boyfriends before entering the house, but that they kind of let it be known that they may have to flirt while they're in the house. And so that's just the way it's going to be type situation. Hannah, with all of that in mind, Hannah starts wondering if going after Alyssa before Brittany, because Brittany's been a huge target for a lot of people. Brittany doesn't have a whole lot of tight connections. It doesn't seem like. And so Hannah's saying, well, we've talked about Brittany, but I'm wondering, would going after Alyssa first make more sense, since Alyssa is so much better at developing relationships, especially developing relationships with the guys in this house. But they are worried that if they go after Alyssa too soon, would they be able to get Christian and Xavier to go along with them? Because the guys all like Alyssa. Certainly Christian is not going to be on board with getting rid of Alyssa, and Xavier probably wouldn't either. And so there is worry that that if they go after Alyssa, they're going to create some other targets as well. So that's what they've got to hash out and figure out. The talk continues. It was a long conversation going on. I think it was, what time was this? This was about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock or so. So everyone was up, but a lot of people were outside, and these players were doing the strategy talk. Hannah, they both, let's see, they both talk about Alyssa, talked about that. The talk continues. Hannah is thinking that Brittany would be Brent's target, which probably is the case. It makes sense that they would be. Brent already said he'd go after that side of the house. But also Hannah doesn't think that Tiffany or Azah would be targets, which kind of leaves Brittany and Claire as potentials. They're talking about Christian at this point in time. They think, and this is they think that Christian should go after Brent as a target, because they know that Christian knows that Brent and Frenchie were kind of going after him. And so they say, we got to use that as the reason and justification. Christian should go after Brent, but they're not sure if he actually would, because Alyssa and Brent are close. And so if Christian goes after Brent, he may make Alyssa, his showmance, a little upset. So they're not sure that he actually would do that. And from that, they start talking more, and they realize that all of these different relationships, Christian going after Brent, do we go after Brent ourselves? All that, so much of it involves Alyssa and Xavier and all this. So much of it involves Alyssa, and they're starting to identify that she may be a linchpin to a lot of different people that are tight with each other, especially when you're talking about Brent and Whitney, and that maybe Alyssa needs to go next week, even though you run a risk of kind of alienating Christian a little bit. They are thinking that if they get rid of Alyssa, suddenly all these guys lose someone that they all think they're close to, and it'll force them to develop some more relationships, some more alliances, and give these three women a little more ability to develop some connections with some of the guys. So Alyssa is very quickly getting her name thrown out there as a primary target as the week progresses. Claire, now all this conversation has been between just Tiffany and Hannah. At this point, Claire comes into the room instead, joins the conversation. Excuse me. She joins the crew, and she agrees with Hannah and Tiffany that Alyssa is a threat, and that Christian, Xavier, and Alyssa, all three are a trio that somehow need to be broken up. And she feels that Alyssa is the easiest one to go after those three to break that group up. But she does say that if y'all are going to target Alyssa, if we're going to target Alyssa, we need to just go ahead and go after Christian at the same time, because he's going to be upset as well, and we might as well just put him on the block also. Tiffany brings up the point. She says, look, I don't think the guys are going to vote out Alyssa if we put her on the block. But Claire comes out, has a very good observation. She said, look, yes, if we put Alyssa out, they're not going to want to vote her out. But if we put her up against a guy, these guys are so worried about a women's alliance, they may vote Alyssa out just to protect the men's numbers as well. So that's the approach that we need to take. And with that in thought in mind, Tiffany is suggesting now that maybe Alyssa go up against the guy, but not Christian. Because remember, Tiffany and Christian have been working together, and they're feeling pretty tight with each other. So Tiffany's saying, okay, well, I get that. Let's put up Alyssa and let's put up Brent together. If we do that, then suddenly there's a good chance that Alyssa goes home. And if not, if she wins veto or something, they still have Brent on the block and can target him instead. So they agree it has to be a guy, but it does sound like Alyssa is suddenly becoming a huge target with some of the people in the house. And then finally, we've got Tiffany and Hannah saying, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it. But Claire, you may be the best person to do this because you don't really have the connections with Brent and Alyssa and such that would create complications. Why don't you win the HOH? You've got our support. We'd love to see you win the HOH and do all the stuff that we talked about. Claire's saying, Claire's not completely on board with being the one that's going to lead the charge on this. Well, with good measure, it's easy to say, great idea. You need to do this, and I'll sit back and I'll be cheering you on. Well, Claire will create some targets on her back if she does this. So she's a little uncertain about that. But eventually Tiffany says, hey, look, Claire, if it just comes down to us, I'll even throw the HOH to you. I'd love to see you win HOH. So again, Tiffany and Hannah have some great ideas. They don't necessarily want to be identified as the ones that came up with it that are pushing it, which from a gameplay standpoint, I understand it. It's a great strategy. So we'll see what happens. Again, we got 24 hours more. Then we get the eviction. Then we get an HOH and everything starts all up again. And I'm hoping for more chaos. Obviously, it depends on who wins HOH, but I think things are going to ramp up quite a bit given another 24 hours. So there you have it, guys. A little bit of a chill evening, but we did have some good conversations. I will see y'all again in 24 hours. Until then, y'all have a fantastic Wednesday. SKD 143. Cheers, my friends. Bye.